So you might be wondering why I'm talking about Raid World War II in 2020, but I saw this video and I kind of took it as a challenge, so probably not what he meant by this, but here we go anyway. Also, I think it's fair to say that I'm fairly qualified to talk about Raid considering these hours, and obviously 100%ing the game. So the story of Raid begins with Payday 2 because the publisher of Raid is also the publisher for Payday. Now, they did a lot of crossover stuff, as I'll show you some of it here. There's a room inside your safe house where you can see John Cleese on the screen and look around and see some World War II weaponry and various other World War II things. And there's also, in one of the missions, there is a room dedicated to Raid World War II with scenes from the game on the walls and weapons that are in the game also in this room. There's also a loot item that was added to Framing Frame on the third day, which is a box of wine, which you can loot. All things from Raid, and there might be some other stuff that I just forgotten about, but either way, those things were in the game and built up hype for this game. Now, the people who developed this game had worked on Payday 2 before. They had made heists such as the Golden Green Casino, which is a really fun heist. And when I'm playing Payday, I generally play that one quite a lot. They also made some weapon packs and such, so this was going to be their first game, and this is where the problems start, because it got so much hype from being promoted in Payday 2. When it was actually released, people just thought it was a Payday 2 clone. It was on the same engine. These devs had worked on Payday 2 as well, so there's obviously going to be some sort of creative overlap, but in reality it's just not the same game. You don't really do the same things. There's a lot of creative differences, which we'll go over in this video. But the initial response to this game was just to say, quite honestly, pretty stupid stuff about it, which just wasn't really true, like it being a clone. So the idea of the game is a co-op 4-person World War II shooter, and your role is to, while behind enemy lines, raid various places, either to destroy something that's strategically important, or to steal something that's worth a lot of money. Now, basically all the missions in this game feel very creative, and they just have so much to them, which I feel needs to be talked about. So I'll use one mission as an example. An example of one of these many interesting raids is the Amber Room. So first you've got to find the Amber Room, which is inside one of the train carts. You get this big crane and move into position and attach it to the Amber Room. You lift the Amber Room through the air to the other side of the track and you place it down. Then you blast your way into the maintenance shed. Once inside the maintenance shed, you fuel and move a train out of the shed, and then you have to defend the train from incoming bombers. Then you attach the train and the Amber Room together, and then leave. Now there's lots of different kinds of raids. I use this one as an example, just because it was one I happened to be recording when I was playing, but trust me when I say there's lots of different and fun raids to play, and there's something quite cool that Raid did, which Payday should have done years ago, and they still haven't, which is having very long multi-day raids. Because in Raid you can have these very long multi-day raids, but you can save your progress halfway through a raid and come back to it whenever you want, which is strange they don't have that in Payday. Something else that this game did that Payday 2 didn't, that perhaps only I care about, is the fact it has borderless window, and Payday 2 doesn't have borderless window, even though it's been out for God knows how long. Anyway, to get back on track, the game was released in a state which was, honestly, it wasn't finished. I'm sure the developers, if you asked them, they wouldn't deny that, but they put the effort in to get it to where it should be. They released quite a few updates. I think it was 19 major updates, and in these updates they released lots of new weapons. As well as these weapons, those two of the raids added, one of which is probably my favourite raid, which is where you go through some tunnels with a minecart full of explosives to go and blow up a V2 rocket. It's just really fun. There was also a very strong community around this game, and there was a load of dev streams where they would show off all the stuff they're adding, and they would talk with members of the community while doing that, responding to the stream chat and such. It was really good fun. And it's a shame that this game died in the way it did, because if it was given a few more years of development, it could have been such a great game really, but it was killed early just by bad reviews, which were just extremely uncharitable. And it's quite sad to see because the developers stood by this game after they knew it failed, and obviously for the developers this was a big deal because this is their first game, and they had promised free updates, so they provided free updates, and they were funding this themselves, so it's a very nice thing for them to do for such a small community. One of the other core concepts to the game was the war cries. Now the war cries, there was 4 different war cries which you could upgrade by leveling up. The war cries were untouchable, which made you harder to hit, increase your entire team's speed. There was sharpshooter, which gave you auto aim and gave extra damage to the whole team. Ignition, which gave you cluster grenades and reduced the amount of damage your team would take, and there was Berserk, which reduced ammo consumption and healed your whole team. So I made this video to recommend that you play this game. I think it's just such a fun game, especially to play with a few friends, and going for achievements is really fun as well, hence why I have all of them. And for 15 quid, it's really worth it. Originally when the game was launched it was too expensive. I think the developers said that themselves, that they wanted a price drop because of how expensive it was, but this game is really worth the 15 quid, especially if you can get a couple of friends to play it with, or you can have a look on the Lion Game Lion Discord server. I'm sure you can find someone to play with. You can also customize your character and what they wear. Personally, I'm not much into customization, but if you are, there's a fair bit of customization to be done. There's also these cards which modify gameplay, but you can only use them online, so if you find a few friends to play with, then you can actually use them. Which is a shame really that you can only use them online. But they did make it so you can trade them between players, which means that you can get ones you want if you have some friends who play the game. These cards drop from playing missions. There's also gold in the game, which gold was sort of the currency in the game, but the game wasn't too heavily reliant on a currency, because the game really wasn't the same as something like Payday, where you would loot to get money and use the money to do stuff. The gold in this was purely just for aesthetic things, to upgrade your little camp, where you could upgrade all the different stations and a couple other things in the camp, and also the gold just looks nice sat around in piles on the floor. Something that's really cool that I like about Raid that I've not actually seen in a game before, but it's probably been done before, but I haven't seen it before, is that the lobby, instead of just being a typical lobby, is your camp. You can run around it and interact with all the different stations and whatnot, so I think that's pretty cool. So I'll talk about the level system a little bit as well. Here's a picture of what the level tree looks like. As you can see, that you get 3 options per level of what you can level up, and they usually are something like making lockpicking easier or making a particular type of weapon better, and so on and so forth. And also want to talk about the weapon modification. The way you would upgrade weapons, rather than like you do in Payday 2 where you just find a module and buy it, you actually have to complete challenges, such as getting a certain amount of headshots with the gun to unlock an upgrade. And these upgrades could look kind of silly, as you can see here, but you can turn off the aesthetic changes to the gun, which means that you can have the upgrades without it affecting the aesthetic of the weapon, which is quite nice. So to conclude the review, I'd say that this game's definitely worth getting. It's got lots of unique missions, it's got quite a lot of weaponry in the game now, after all the updates, and it's just fun to play with friends. This one game won't be for everyone. It's not a serious World War II shooter, it's a very casual World War II shooter, very arcadey, but I think it's great. I really enjoy it. So thank you for watching my video, which I'm sure I've missed something in this video, and I'll see you next time, probably with another War Thunder video. But I had to get this video out now because I wanted to get it out before 2020 ended. So thanks for watching, and goodbye.